بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم ألهمنا مراشد أمورنا وأعذنا من شرور أنفسنا. This is the chapter regarding Salah, but for us it's more regarding that how in an era where a person does not have that ability to do what the awliya of the past would do. And Allah Tabarak Ta'ala's system is such that where the sickness increases, then Allah Tabarak Ta'ala splits the shifa, also the cure, in a much bigger manner. So we are living in an era where things are very difficult. And when there's a lot of fitan, what in the past would be regarded, and that is mentioned in certain narrations, that when the people at the ending, even if they hold on to a part of what the people at the beginning held on to, their work will get done. So we only have to grab onto a part. In the previous eras, if a person left out mustahabbat, you will read Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimullah, a student came to him and he found the student was not reading tahajjud salah. So he told that student, then what are you doing by me? If there is no tahajjud in your life, where will knowledge ever come? So that was in that era. And in this era we call the student and we say that you're not reading your fajr salah. If you're not reading your fajr salah, where will knowledge ever come? And we say, please read your fajr salah, like please. So now where Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal will turn in his qabr, like if he has to hear that. We calling you for fajr. Say, you're missing your fajr. But Allah Tabarak Ta'ala in His kindness, that man who's reading his 5 times salah in today's era, 5 times, in the company of Hazrat Shah Hakim Muhammad Akhtar Sahib, he would repeat this so many times. He said, I'm asking you that you guarantee me. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's words was, the man who guarantees me what's between his jaws, meaning his tongue, and what's between his legs, meaning his private parts, he said, I guarantee him paradise. Hazrat Hakim Sahib would say, you tell me that you will look after your eye, and I tell you that you will get the crown of wilayat. He said, I'm not asking for any nafal. I remember one time, one of us said, Hazrat, make dua that we don't ever miss the tahajjud salah. Like we get that shock that we can't miss the tahajjud. Normally if you get the dua from like a wali, then the work gets done. Something will wake you up tahajjud time. And we heard of another great sheikh, the murid asked that, he asked, what do you want? He said, make dua for tahajjud to come in my life. And that person said that after he got that dua, he never missed tahajjud. So we thought we'll cash in. So we asked Hazrat Hakim Sahib, like, what do you all want? So he said, tahajjud. Hazrat Hakim Sahib went like in a josh. There was times where we saw he would get that. That was one of those times. Where he tried to set up like. And then he said, Allah's qasam, Allah's qasam. You're leaving one guna is more greater in the eyes of Allah than hundreds and hundreds of tahajjud salah. Yet a lot of this here, like we're living in an era of sin. In the era of sin, everyone is saying, I want to read Lord Nafal. They are saying, leave sinning. And then you would go back onto the eye. But guarantee me you won't look with your eye and you'll get the crown of wilayat. That time there was no need to discuss the issue of television, phones, digital, is it allowed, not allowed. The issue was, will you be able to look after your eye? So the woman would say that, how I look after my eye if I'm looking at this thing? Immediately say, I can't look at this thing. In this. So we're living in an era where we don't have that ability to go looking first at nawafil to get our work done. Because the man who's drowning in pornography and in filth and in dirt and wasting his time on the phone, and then he comes and he says, I want to change my life. And the first thing you say, okay my friend, what I want you to do is, every day 300 times you will read this year and 200 times you will read this. And that poor person says, but Sheikh, I don't read my salah also. Like, what's you going to ask? One person asked my brother, there was some issues, so my brother said, I'll give you one wazifa. But this thing will only work after the first salah. Like, I could already see like the eye, like, meaning I don't read the first salah. Like, that was one way many ulama got people onto salah. That man had to like come. But you get some people amazing, they'll come without wuzu also. Like, they'll come without wuzu just to get the wazifa done. Hazrat Moulana Ashraf Ali Tanwi Rahimullah wrote that in wazaif some people got so much pabandi, like usuls. So there's one usul when you're reading your wazifa. I visited my friend one time, he was reading Surah Baqarah. So every day he reads Surah Baqarah. I try to tell him that now you can cut it like one page. And then you say, Allah, like this is like my Surah Baqarah will go slowly. So one page a day and then take it easy. But he told me, I love my Surah Baqarah. So I told him, inshallah, your work will get done. But I reached there, lucky he was at the end of it, almost. Lucky, I mean. So I could see his cousins told me that sometimes they come early, they got long to wait. Like, he will not talk. So this person, he was like that. When his wazifa starts, the normal usul in the wazifa is as long as you're busy, you can't talk. So Hazrat Tanwi Rahimullah mentioned there was one person who had his wazaif, the sheikh had given. But this man was working in a government office. And when you work in government offices, normally it's got to do with bribery. So now the people in the morning, that was the best time to visit him, that before you go to office, we sort out our matters with you. But he's busy with his wazaif. So they would come to him now, and he would be sitting because, tell Ishraq, I'm busy with my wazaif. So the law was that you write down whatever you need, like, I got this problem, yeah? And the person would come, then he would look at that paper like this, but he can't talk, he has to read his wazifa. And then he would make sign like under the musalla. Like. So you take your money, you put it under musalla, then he got the paper there, then he puts it one side. Everything is done without talking. He said, wow, look at his leg. So much of adab on the wazifa, and the bribery is under the musalla. Under the musalla. He said, so much people had. So those people forgot one thing, that what Allah has made farz, lot of our work will get done in that. If that man says, I will not look at haram, and then he says, I want to reach Allah, he says, you already reached Allah. Like. But you want to look at haram and take out a tasbih and say, give me some tasbih to read. As Rakim Sahib would say, the worst tasbih is the man looks at that girl and he says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And why is he looking? Like? Had he looked down, that one looking down would have been 1,000 tasbihat. One looking down. Abdaltuhu halawat al-iman. Allah Tabarak Ta'ala says, you looked down, man taraka makhafi, that person who left out the nazar just because of my fear. I will give him in lieu of that nazar the beauty, the sweetness of iman. That sweetness of iman wasn't promised with 1,000 nawafil. So in faraiz, majority of man's work can get done. So why we started this chapter and our usul at the beginning was this year, that we have been reading farz namaz for so long. But perhaps the person never looked towards the farz that you will get my work done. Because of that there, if you don't expect something, you're not going to get it. Ana inda zanni abdi bi. Allah Tabarak Ta'ala announced, I will treat my servant how he views me. If we could see our farz namaz, that in this year, that guna, that sin is going to fall, then that man will come out of that masjid and he will say, when Allah has promised, why should I feel the deal wasn't done? So we spoke about that sahabi who kissed a girl. We spoke about that sahabi who said, Hajj has become wajib. The beginning of this Al-Faslu Thalis. Perhaps it's the same narration where he says, Inni aalajtu imra'atan. I engaged with a woman in the far corner of the city. Wa inni asabtu minha. And I did something to her. He said, now make a decision with regards to me. Umar radiallahu anh said, Allah has covered your sin. Why don't you just go away from it? Nabi Sallallahu did not answer. This was the narration we had spoken about. And thereafter wahi came for him and he said, Waqim is salata. that your salah will do the work for you. Innal hasanat yudhibna sayyat. So regarding this, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam once came out. It was the days of winter, zamanat shita. So in autumn and winter you have our trees, and in the deserts they hardly have much. But where the winter, the autumn comes, that tree becomes fully bare. So you just have those few leaves that are lasting there. And their trees are not like ours, like solid branches. Their branch also is that very weak branch, where you can move it with your hands nicely. And as you shake it, give it a good shaking, the little that's left also falls away. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw, وَالْوَرَقُ يَتَحَاتَفَتُ. Already it was that those leaves were falling. فَأَخَذَ بِغُصْنَيْنِ مِنْ شَجَرَةٍ. So he grabbed 2 branches of a certain tree. فَجَعَلَ ذَلِكَ الْوَرَقُ يَتَحَافَتُ. And because when you grab it and you move it, that extra movement causes that little bit that was there also to fall. Look at what an example was given. That one is, it's already falling. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam then said, "Oh Abu Dharr," he said, "Labbaik ya Rasulullah." Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Innal abdal muslim la yusalli as-salah." A servant of Allah who got Islam, he performs one salah, yuridu biha wajh Allah. And he got an intention in that salah, "Oh Allah, I'm looking for you." So all of us entered the masjid. And you ask the person why you came. And some people will say, "I just came." And the other person who said, "I came to find my Allah." Yuridu biha wajh Allah. Fatahatafa anhu dhunubuhu. So his sins start falling away from him. The word tahafut normally means yatasaqatu tasaqutan sari'an. That very fast, one after the other, he's just falling away. One after the other. It says like how these leaves are falling from this tree. So much it falls. So why was it that it was already falling and now it just needed you to grab it and push little and more will fall? It's because as we read in the previous chapter, last year perhaps it was, that one is 3/4 of the work gets done in the wuzu already. While making the wuzu, everything is falling already. So we are like that tree where we already, one after the other, sins are just falling. Now when that person enters the masjid, the little bit that's left, now he just needs to grab, like how we grabbing those branches. And now you just hold on to it and you do your movements. And as you do your movement, it's like you're pulling those branches for that last end. And the little that's left also, that falls away. Allah's system is when there is no sins to drop, then by Allah it is now stages to rise. When there are no sins to drop, because it comes that so much sins get forgiven, so much sins. So the question comes, what about that person now his sins are forgiven? So the answer is given, then Allah Tabarak Ta'ala then starts putting on. So if the wuzu got the work done, little bit sins were left, you read a proper salah. So what was the proper salah? One is yuridu biha wajh Allah. That when we enter the masjid, just think, why am I here? It's that same for salah, everyone is reading. But if that man just thinks at that moment, that has it that the madrasa forced me to come here. So the man says, I know my condition. If I was being forced, I would have entered without wuzu. No one can force me. So I have come here, why? And he just think, Allah, I came because I want to be your servant. Immediately his whole salah will change. It will not just be now on to rush through this thing, because no one forced me. I came myself right till the door. Right till the door. Now he says, I only have to behave for 5 minutes. So first one is, he intends with it the pleasure of Almighty Allah. I am searching for the Zat of Allah. Yuridu biha wajh Allah. Number 2, Allah's Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, Man salla sajdatain la yashu fihima. If an individual is able to perform 2 sajdas, in which he does not make a mistake. Again, no mention was mentioned of the heart, Because as we mentioned, the heart runs away very fast. Last week we spoke about, can you look after your postures? A man can make 2 sajdas and he does not make an error in it. غَفَرَ اللَّهُ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. Allah will forgive all his previous sins. So that individual just thinks about this promise. That I'm going to go in my ruku now. What my heart is doing got nothing to do with me. I must just know I must read Subhana Rabbiyal Azim 3 times in it. Finish. Mujaddid al-Fasani rahimullah was known as the wali of the era, the mujaddid of a very huge era. He had traversed all the stages of suluk. He was the one who said after going through every stage and trying all the adhkar and all the wazaif and trying to see what took me the closest to Allah. He said, I understood at the ending and I advised my murids that there is no easier way to reach Almighty Allah than what is called the sunnah. He said, it looks so simple, like there's nothing in it. But it is the most fastest, the most easiest, the most effective. So in one of his letters, someone asked him that how do I get a salah of khushu and khudu, where my heart is only focused. Because normally a person, if we had sat in ta'aleem also, we had read certain waqiyat, that an individual started his salah, and in the house there was a snake that fell, and the people were screaming, but this individual did not hear it. Or we heard of a person had to have an operation, and they said, I'll start my salah, and then you operate, I will not feel it. Or we read about a person said, Allahu Akbar, and then Jannah came in front of him, and the whole night he was... So sometimes the mind goes that I want that salah. That how do I get so involved in my salah that I become oblivious for the world? So when a person sets that as his target, now that's a very far target. It's like a person wants to start riding horses. So the one time when we went to ride horses, the one man told us, at that time there was this, lot of children were looking at what was called Turkish heroes. So in those Turkish heroes, there was one thing that the horse, I think, comes up like, and the individual like stays on it, he doesn't fall. So he says, every child who comes here, he doesn't want to learn how to ride a horse. He wants to learn how to do that funny stunt. So because his mind was already on something beyond, I'm trying to tell him walk with the horse. For him, like, this is not what I want. Like, I want to be like a mujahid. He said, you're not walking. Like, that thing is for the stunts. That horse has to learn to walk with you. Sometimes we look at a very high thing, which is beyond reach. And because of that day, we don't start walking. So the person asked him that I want that salah, which is known as a salah of istighraq. Istighraq means I drown in my salah. I go deep in the salah. But we all know if the person can't swim, we're not going to tell him now dive and go in the waters, because you're not going to come out after that. You will first have to learn how to swim. Just stay on the top. Move little bit, come out. Move little bit, come out. So the person asked him, so his answer was this. He said, according to this slave, he used to call himself slave, the beginning and end of khushu and khudu, it is what is written in the books of fiqh, like how we do Nurul Idah. In the chapter of the faraiz of salah, the sunnah of salah, the mustahabbat of salah. He said if the person read that, and then when he started his salah, he said the farz I have to do, I can't make a mistake. I have to read my surah Fatiha, I can't start with something else. And then the sunnah, surah Fatiha comes first, and then the surah comes, that's wajib. And I will read it in this manner. And then the mustahabbat, that when I'm standing, I'll press my hand here. When I go in my ruku, I'll open my fingers. When I go in sajda, I'll close my fingers. When I'm standing, I'll look at my feet. Or when I'm standing, I'll look at the place of where I'm going to be making my sajda. When I'm going into ruku, I will look at my feet. Some ulama have mentioned I will look at the inside. So my feet will be here. and I will be looking at this part and at that part. So it's called focusing the eye. Can you look at two insides at the same time? Then I will come up again and my eye will go back to the place of sajda. I will go in sajda, I will put my nose first. Then I'll put my forehead. I'll make sure they press nice and hard. When I'm in the sajda now, I'll focus my eyes on my nose. You might be thinking I'm going into so much of. But this is what is called, if a person starts doing this, when you go for driver's license, I think there's one law that you have to look at Lord places in that mirror. Whenever you go for it and you go the genuine way, those people who never went genuine, they don't even know it happened. But those that went genuine, they will know. You go for a test first. When you go for a test, the tester, the teacher also tell you, when you go for lessons, that I also don't do it. But to pass, you will have to do this thing. You will look. Like so many times you're looking. A person normally tries that when he's driving, he'll have an accident. But on that day, they tell you, you'll have to look here, look here, look here. So we asked someone, what's the benefit of it? He said the benefit of it is it will train you that naturally you will start looking. Your body, because you're doing so much, later on you're not going to do so much. But naturally, you will start looking at the places you're supposed to see. So in the beginning of trying to get a salah, you have to play lot. You'll have to say, when standing, I must press. And my eyes, hey, where is my eye? It's supposed to be there. And now I'm going into ruku, open my fingers. Then I'm coming back, focus my eye. Then I'm going to go in sajda, put my nose, put my forehead, press hard, bring my eyes towards the tip of my nose. With all of that there, you'll say, I'm running short of time now. When the time for tasbih? Immediately 3 times, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la. We're not even speaking about concentrating of the meaning. At the moment you just have to think about, what am I doing? I need to do this, I need to do this. He said, according to the slave, if you look at the farz, the sunnah, and the mustahabbat which mention in the book of fiqh, and you start training yourself on it. So last week I said, let's start with one. That when we're standing, press and feel the pain a little. When you go in ruku, open your hands and feel it. When we go in sajda, close your fingers and feel it. And thereafter you will do it. You're doing it in Nur al-Ida, you will do it in Sharul Wiqaya, you'll do it in Hidayah. There will be so much of detail, so much of ikhtilaf. But if we don't do it in our salah. There was one friend, I read Salah next to him, he was in his Dora final year. So in his final year, he went in sajda and his fingers were like this. So after the Salah, I told him that, how many kitabs you must have seen where they mention that join your fingers. But just because no one ever told you that your fingers are open, you never thought about it. It's like you read all the books of how to drive a car, but you need someone to tell you, my friend, you're not driving right. So sometimes you just need a friend to tell you, or you become your own friend. And in your next salah, look at your fingers. And then think about how far am I from the salah I'm looking for. So if you can get a salah of khushu and khudu, which now doesn't mean that my horse must do heavy stunts. It just means I must walk normal. In that day you will see all your sins will start falling away. They will just fall. I will concentrate on my eye and on my fingers. Last week we mentioned you will press when standing. We will open our fingers in ruku. We will close our fingers in sajda. That's the fingers. As for the eye, when I'm standing, I look at the place of sajda. And every time my eye goes to the clock, goes to somebody else, immediately I'll say, come back. This eye has to be taught. One is ulama have mentioned, you train it in salah. Out of salah, it will know where to look. But the other one is what's mentioned here. It is because this eye is obedient to the command of Allah. Allah in His kindness says, whatever sin you have done before the salah, because now you are working for me, I have to pay you. That is why it's so important to keep that eye there. Because this eye is doing the most nonsense out of Salah. It has done the most of sin out of Salah. And this finger has done it. All those messages that people are typing nowadays, and they type it very fast. And sometimes a person sends me a message, I take very long to reply. So on email I reply because I know they can't reply immediately. And if they reply also, I won't see it. But those few who got a WhatsApp, I take so long to send that answer. As soon as that answer goes, the thing is back already. They read it and they reply with it like so fast. This finger has done a lot of guna. If this finger in the first salah can enter into the employment of Almighty Allah, that now I am going to do what you asked, and this eye can enter. If you think about this here, you'll see your eye. Every time it wants to look, you'll tell it, hey, at the moment you're working. You're working. It's like how we have workers in the madrasa. So the madrasa would like always, we have a gadget that you can't go out of the madrasa until you put your finger. So it shows where you are. Because some of our workers, whenever you look for them, they're not here. So by the end of the month, you'll have to pay them. So by Almighty Allah, we want that pay. But we know our eye, he runs away. Heart runs away, that Allah has made a lot of kindness. That don't worry of that. But your eye mustn't run away. So you put your eye where you're looking to make sajda, and as soon as it goes to the clock, you tell it you're working at the moment. Immediately it'll come back. Then when I'll go in ruku, I'll look at my legs. And where we look at the inside of the feet. The reason why you do that, Hazrat Muhammad Ramit Sahib says, many people look at their toes. I don't know why. He says, then they start playing piano. So he says, don't look on your toe. You just look on the inside. It's a unique system where your eye will learn to. Again, you'll tell your eye you're working. Otherwise the eye will say, what I get out of it? You'll say, you're working. As long as you are in the employment of Allah, Allah is going to pay. Allah's system of paying is whatever sin is in that eye, first I'll wipe it away. And then I'll start filling it with nur. That eye that has a lot of nur. After the salah, the next time a girl comes in front, it is the blessings of that nur that will make that eye go down. That I don't want to look. Then little of that nur will get wiped away. Then again you'll get involved in looking. Then the next salah will come. Again that eye will go in the employment of Allah. Allah in His kindness will say, I wipe it away already. Innal hasanat yudhibna sayyat. Let's come with a clean eye. Then again it will get filled with nur. Just think of this here when you're performing your salah. This eye needs a lot of help, and this fingers needs a lot of help. And if in my first salah I can get that there, then my work is going to get done. May Allah Tabarak Ta'ala bless us all, that we can perform that salah. Man hafadha alayha, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, whoever will be firm on his salah, this was called our farz, kanat lahu nuran, he will find that whatever light he is looking for, he will find it in his salah. May Allah Tabarak Ta'ala grant us that light. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.